Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Diablo series here on my channel. My name is ChaosMole and I know we are a little bit late for this. Unfortunately, we had to do some changes to the YouTube channel and the schedule, and here we are. But today I want to talk to you about the history of the Diablo franchise. Because even though Diablo is a massively successful franchise, it had a lot of ups and downs throughout the decades. And to basically understand how we got here, where we are right now with the Diablo franchise, which is not necessarily in the best state, we have to look back at the history of it. And we have to go back into the year 1995. I know, eons for some people, but this is very important because Blizzard just had their first success with Warcraft, and they also got bought by a venture capital company, which you don't have to know because they don't even exist anymore, and they were really happy about the success of Warcraft and Blizzard, and they thought now is the time to expand on their gaming portfolio. So they were looking for another company who was getting close to release their game and where they saw a lot of potential in that game, and they found that company, bought them, and introduced them to the Blizzard family as Blizzard North. And this was the first time where Blizzard was already not too happy about this, because it's like, hey, why do you call them like that? They are a completely independent studio with a completely independent development team, with a completely independent budget, and so on and so forth. Blizzard North, and this is very important to know, was a completely independent studio who was just using all but the name of Blizzard, right? Again, this is very important. This is also where this little rivalry between Blizzard North and Blizzard came from, and why it is very important later on when we are looking at the demise of that studio. Spoilers. And so Blizzard North was, of course, working at their very first game, which was Diablo. Surprise. And they released it in 1996, and it was a massive success. It did rewrite basically a lot of the rules action RPGs have been set at that point, and changed a lot. It became so successful that Blizzard North immediately started to work at Diablo II, but this was the first time where there would be a problem. Because the parent company of Blizzard and Blizzard North was like, okay, yeah, working on Diablo 2, that's cool, let's do that. But also, how about an expansion for Diablo 1 before you're moving on? And Blizzard North was like, nah, can't do, we are already working on Diablo 2, we don't really have time for that. Sorry. So they were going to Blizzard, and they were like, hey, Blizzard, could you maybe? And Blizzard was just like, No, definitely not. That's not our problem. Have a good one. So the parent company then said, okay, you know what? Well, if nobody wants to do it, then we will find a third developer who would just do the expansion for us. And Blizzard's North reaction to this was certainly not. Well, what you gonna do about it? They are the parent company, they make the decisions, and they are owning you. So they did actually find a third-party studio who was then working on the Hellfire expansion, but the problem was this wasn't really sanctioned by Blizzard or Blizzard North, so the things they could actually do with the expansion was kind of limited. Funny enough, a good chunk of the features we will see in the Hellfire expansion would actually find their way into Diablo 2. So they definitely took some notes, even though they never sanctioned the whole endeavor. But Hellfire released just about a year later, and it was a massive success. And then Blizzard North just moved forward. They completely worked on Diablo 2, and then in 2000, they released Diablo 2. And it was a massive success. It was considered as one of the best games of all time, and definitely one of the best games that year, and it completely redefined again what people would expect from an action RPG. Like, we had the talent trees, multiple classes, open world aspects, multiple acts, end game. There was so much in Diablo 2 that people just said, you know what, this is it. This is the pinnacle of Blizzard North. Well, Then about 1.5 years later, that pinnacle just got moved up because they released the first expansion, and the only expansion, Lot of Destruction. And, well, it again pushed the boundaries of what people thought would be possible with an action RPG. It improved on basically every aspect of the Diablo 2 game and even added more to it. It was completely bonkers when they took a 9 out of 10 game and made it an 11 out of 10 game through an expansion. It became really clear that Blizzard North was an exceptional group of talented developers. And we don't really know what happened after the release of Diablo 2. Not exactly, but a little bit later, we know what would happen because they started to work on Diablo 3. And this was apparently on a request of Blizzard because Blizzard needed a lifeline. Wait, what? Why? What's going on? Well, you see, Blizzard was working on their biggest game yet. And that was, of course, World of Warcraft. And World of Warcraft was so big that if it would fail, it could tank the whole company with everyone in it. They could go under if World of Warcraft fails. So they needed a lifeline. They had a plan B. And that plan B was to release Diablo 3 if World of Warcraft fails about a year after the release of World of Warcraft. So Diablo 3 had to be done in 2005 / the latest in 2006 so that the company could be safe if things would go south. Now, as we know, that never happened because World of Warcraft was a mega success. One of the most successful games of all times, and especially at the time, an absolute juggernaut in the gaming industry, not just for MMOs, but for games in general. And that massive success should spell the doom for Blizzard North, because Blizzard saw an opportunity here in around 2005-2006 that they could kill 3 birds with just 1 stone. The first thing was finally getting rid of a competitor who also had the name Blizzard in their name, right? Even though they were not really a Blizzard studio. But that wasn't too important. Again, the rivalry was pretty important between Blizzard and Blizzard North, but this wasn't like the most important part. The second point, which was definitely more important, was Diablo 3 had to be cancelled, because Diablo 3 was now to be seen as an issue, something which, if it would release in 2005-2006, could at least slow down the growth of World of Warcraft, if not even cannibalize World of Warcraft's own community. So Blizzard wouldn't let that happen. And the third part, which is, I think, the most important of all of them, Blizzard needed developers. Desperately. They needed developers to really fuel the success of World of Warcraft, and they needed them yesterday. So the thing is, of course, Blizzard did hire developers from the outside, but that takes months. You have to find the right candidate, then you have to teach them how it works, right? They have to get used to the whole thing. It would take months till those developers would be ready to go to really be effective at working at World of Warcraft. And Blizzard didn't have that time. So they thought, wait a second. If we are closing down this studio right now, we would get rid of our rival, we would get rid of Diablo 3, and we would have hundreds and hundreds of developers at our disposal immediately to work at World of Warcraft. And so they did it. They did close down Blizzard North at that time. And, well, as you can imagine, this didn't bode well with the developers at Blizzard North. Quite the opposite. Instead of flooding the World of Warcraft development team, most of the developers, especially the higher-ups, showed Blizzard the middle finger and left the company for good. It was one of the biggest exodus in games development we have seen for years, and it did nothing good for Blizzard. like again, the biggest hope they really had to garner a lot of those developers who would be free right now just got smashed because they felt betrayed. They felt like as if Blizzard did something really scummy and they don't want to have anything to do with the company anymore. And so, well, the franchise basically disappeared for a few years. And nobody really expected to see Diablo anytime soon because, well, the studio who made Diablo and the people who made Diablo were gone. And then, interestingly enough, just a few years later, in 2008, Blizzard announced that they would actually work on Diablo 3, which would be Blizzard's very first dive into the Diablo franchise. Again, Blizzard itself had never anything to do with Diablo before. And, well, how that would go, we would find out in 2010 when they actually released Diablo 3 into the wild. And I can already tell you that this will be an extra video next week because there is a lot to talk about. So much things which just went wrong with that game release, with pay-to-win issues, gearing, gameplay. There is so much that we will have an extra video on that next week. So, after their very shitty release, Blizzard were sitting down and were working on the first and only expansion for Diablo 3, which was Reaper of Souls, which would fix a lot of the problems this game had, but would also keep a lot of the already existing problems, because they were going much deeper than you could have fixed with just one expansion. But after that expansion, well, the franchise did go dormant again. There wasn't like a lot of big updates after the game came out, and Blizzard basically moved on because they also couldn't really like monetize the game anymore, because the only real consistent monetization they had, the auction house, was taken out of the game with the expansion. And then, well, after years and years, 6 years to be precise, we would get the biggest announcement yet. The BlizzCon. People will remember for decades, because Blizzard announced a new Diablo game, and the biggest question they had after the announcement was, do you guys not have phones? Yes, that was the announcement of Diablo Immortal. I think, as somebody who has worked in the PR business for video games for multiple years, I've been working on Black Desert Online, Final Fantasy XIV, Stormblood, and from a PR perspective, this was the worst reaction I've ever seen from a developer. So Blizzard completely didn't understand why people were pissed. They didn't get it. Blizzard believed that why the people are pissed was because, oh, it's a mobile game. Yeah, of course, they were hated because it's a mobile game. I was like, no. The biggest problem was the announcement first, where you announced, after 6 years of silence, a new Diablo game at the BlizzCon as the last thing of the day, where people have paid hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars to be there. And your last big, here comes a new Diablo game, was a mobile game. And then instead of trying to explain to the people why this game is worthy their time and why you really feel strongly about it, your reaction was, do you guys not have phones? As if this is the user's problem and not the developer who has to explain to the people why this game is worth their money and time. And they completely failed on that. They didn't just say, do you guys not have phones? They also reacted very aggressive when people were asking them more concrete questions. And their only reaction was always like, yeah, this is a real Diablo experience. Well, yes, but pretty much dumbed down and well, we will talk about Diablo Immortal in just a few. But again, the whole announcement was just bad. It was outright bad and really unfortunate. Then, a year later, thankfully, Blizzard announced Diablo IV. And I have seen the footage again just recently about the announcement itself and the gameplay trailer, and I just realized how early this must have been in the development process. And I'm pretty sure if Diablo Immortal didn't happen, they wouldn't have showcased Diablo 4 in 2019. They would have waited like another year or two before they actually would have showcased it. Because again, I watched the first, and you should do that too, watch the first gameplay trailer they released, and it's kind of rough now when you're like pausing at certain moments in the game. You look at some graphics and some animation and all that. Like, it's pretty early in development. But yeah, they announced Diablo 4, and there was a little bit of a confidence boost, I would say, for the community. So that's good, I guess. But then there was a lot of silence again, and it is now the year 2022, and they released Diablo Immortal. And man, was that a release. Like, the game itself was actually fine. Some people would say it was a good game. It is a good game. But unfortunately, this game is completely ruined by pay to win. And literally pay to gain power. You literally buy money in the item store to power up your character and to power up your items in the game. And there's even PvP in the game. And, well, your pay-to-win equipment is not getting equalized, like in, let's say, Lost Ark, right? So you're getting just steamrolled by the whales, and it's just bad. And the biggest problem here is, again, that Blizzard doesn't acknowledge it. Like, even after the release, a lot of people really just ask Blizzard, like, what do you think you're doing here? Like, didn't you say, like, this will be a real Diablo experience and we shouldn't, like, judge the game before it's not out? Well, now it's out, we can judge it, and it's pay-to-win shit. So what is your plan here? Like, do you really condone this? And Blizzard's reaction to this was silence. Absolute silence. I was like, yeah, that's not really helpful with the franchise, folks. So, unfortunately, right now, Blizzard is again a little bit in a pinch here, and the Diablo franchise is bruised at this point. Like, you have Diablo 3, which made a lot of people move over to other action RPGs like PoE. I mean, this is the reason why PoE has been the king for multiple years, even though they are struggling themselves a little bit right now. But a lot of people just moved to PoE. And then you released a mobile game which can only be considered as a pay-to-win cash cow with nothing else in mind. And yes, I'm looking forward to Diablo 4. I think from what we have seen of Diablo 4, this looks promising. But the reality is, even if that is true, they have to show that they have learned from Diablo 3, that they have learned from the other games which have been out there for quite some time, and that they can turn this around. Because I have the feeling, if Diablo 4 is failing, I'm not sure if we will see another Diablo game for a very long time. So let's hope it will be good and it will turn around the franchise and the series, because I still remember the good days of Diablo, and I want to go back to the time where I can just really have fun with the game and feel like this is the game I want to play for years to come. But again, next week we will take a deep dive at Diablo 3 and what went wrong with the whole release. And then we have, of course, more episodes to come. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you might consider to like it. And if you're new to the channel, you want to see more Diablo videos about the franchise, the series, and of course Diablo 4 when we are getting closer to it, I would appreciate if you might consider to subscribe. We are also doing live streams here on YouTube from Monday to Friday, starting at 8 a.m. East Coast time. That is 1 p.m. UK time and 2 p.m. Central European time. And we are playing all sorts of games, but we also have gaming news and trailers before that. So if you're interested in knowing what is going on in the gaming industry, then you should just stop by and say hi. With that said, again, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.